We felt that the Beach Boys documentary that has just been released on Disney Plus could have gone for 3 times as long as it did. It focused very much on the early to late 60s. We felt there was lots of stories that were left on the cutting room floor. A lot of those stories relates to what the boys actually did in their solo efforts. And today we're going to focus in on Mike Love. There hasn't been a lot mentioned about his efforts to try and decouple himself from the band, and that's something he did attempt to do in the late 70s. Today we're going to unpack that a little bit more, as well as focus in on what he's done in more recent times. Good morning to you, Al. Hope everything's well. Look, this is something that we had no idea about until last week. We thought it was very interesting to talk about, but let's be honest, he's polarizing, right? Like, what's wrong with wanting to be a commercially successful artist?
Oh, mate, good morning. I don't think there's anything wrong at all with being or wanting to be a commercial artist as long as you kind of do it well. And I don't think Mike Love has really, in his vast experience being part of the Beach Boys, really learnt his lesson. I mean, he would be the best man at his own wedding, in my opinion. But you're right, he is polarising. You only have to look at some of his videos and see the comments of both sides, really. But I really had no idea that it was such a goldmine or a minefield of crap. Like, I mean, it really is interesting. And where do we start with this conversation, mate?
Look, that's a good question. Like, I think we've got to start pretty much in the mid-70s. That's where he made his tentative steps to become a solo artist. So, as I said, we've sort of had 2 cracks at this, but around about 1976, 1977, as I can gather, what wasn't as well documented, it's been documented about the Smile Project. What hasn't been as much documented is really Brian's comeback efforts and Mike Love, I guess, pouring scorn over the commercial quality of Brian Wilson's outputs. And it felt like, just reading about it, it was really similar to what was going on in the late 60s. Now, that led him to do a couple of things. He had 2 attempts at a solo album. He did one. It was apparently a country album. They're both unreleased, so it might have been interesting to see how he might have gone with that. But the second one, which was really come about with albums that have been released, they're not on Spotify, so that might say something. You had this vehicle called Celebration, Al, and you know, they had backing artists from the Beach Boys in the band. They did a soundtrack album. They actually had a top 30 hit. It's probably the best of all of the output. But I don't know, not having the same musicians and your same guys, and you just sort of trying to, you know, to effectively get some session musicians in. Like, this is where Mike Love, you know, had no excuses. He had full control, right? So, you know, you'd really now seeing what he is really expecting in terms of, you know, songwriting quality.
So what did this sound like? I haven't really heard much of this Celebration stuff, mate. For those who are in the same camp as me, is it basically going along the same lines as the whole surf, cars and girls kind of thing? Is that what he was trying to continue, or what?
I mean, that's his dominant card. He loves his cars. He loves his surf. He loves his girls. That's his dominant suit, right? That is his dominant suit. But the songs themselves, I mean, it's what you'd expect. It feels like it is, you know, from the late 70s. The musicianship isn't as strong. But out of those 3 albums, the very last one is very interesting. So this is a period of 2 years, and a disco album got created.
What?
So a disco album got created, and now he didn't actually sing on this disco album. So I don't know, he doesn't play instruments. So I don't know what he actually did to contribute to this disco album. And by the way, 1979, I think that's where effectively disco fell off a cliff. So they weren't exactly getting on the ground floor with disco.
So it's pretty hard to find. I mean, you kindly sent me a link last night, and I painstakingly went through a few of the songs, but he's basically chucking out Californian Girls onto this record, and it is really quite cringeworthy. And like, to give him some credit, maybe he was the first to kind of come up with the whole auto-tune kind of thing, but Mate, it is awful. And the irony is that...
It does sound like auto-tune, doesn't it? It's very auto-tune.
Absolutely, but I couldn't find a huge amount of information because, I mean, even on Wikipedia, like the biggest resource in the world, it's a dead link. There's nothing there, mate.
There's a couple of blogs that are out there that talk about it, and that's what I read. There's a couple of people who've spoken about it on YouTube, but very, sparse in terms of the information. In fact, this period here, like there's about 2 years here that he had where he was trying to sort of map out this solo career as a side project. It was sort of like a wings. I think he wanted this to be his wings, right? Yeah, so there you go. But he devoted all of 2 sentences in his autobiography to this period of time, which it's very interesting. Like it's like if this was more successful, right? I'm sure he would have devoted more time.
Absolutely, far out.
Now, I can tell. Now this is I guess the first part of it. The next is he actually did release an actual solo effort in 1981. Now, Al, I'm wanting to play this for you, just a snippet of this, and just sort of get your thoughts on it. It's called Looking Back with Love. Let me know what you think.
Stormy seas and sunny skies above, and now we're looking back with love.
What is this? What is this all about? Like, does he insert his own name into every song and every album he's bloody done? What is the go with this?
I don't know. Look, so he didn't actually write this song, but for me, he's talking. He's actually talking in the first. I think he's talking the first, second, and third person in the one line.
Wow.
I'm sure when he's talking about looking back with love, it's almost like he's referring to himself, but I'm confused. I'm not sure, but it does. It feels like a bit of a proto "We Didn't Start the Fire." So I mean, this is about 8 years before "We Didn't Start the Fire." So I mean, maybe he'll ask for a songwriting credit around that. I mean, he tends to do that, but the album itself, not a lot there to really speak. I mean, he's not the only one who put something out in 1981 which didn't go down quite so well. I think there's a lot of artists in the 60s who just tried it on, and I think they just went 1 or 2 albums too far and didn't really end up well for them. Look, he had a crack. I mean, that's fine, but wasn't quite so well. But that was about it for Mike Love in terms of what the solo career could have been. Of course, there was Kokomo and then all of those types of things. But fast forward. Now, you've explored a little bit about his more recent efforts.
You say explore, you threw me under the bus here. You said, look, go and have a look at what else he's done. And we're going to jump 36 years here to the release of Unleash the Love, which is just horrible. But before then, we're going to go back to 2006, and he's going to put something out there for Christmas. And I'm going to give you, this is my early Christmas gift to you, mate. Have 5 seconds of listening to this. This is Santa's Going to Kokomo.
I swore I'd never tell where Santa and his helpers catch that winter swell. If you wonder why.
Oh, mate.
What are your thoughts?
Oh, well, there's a reason why we didn't hear it, man. We didn't, but I mean, really? So he's look, I mean, I guess he's trying to get the very most out of Kokomo that he could possibly get. Full credit for trying, right?
Oh, absolutely. But he hasn't really learned his lesson. So as I mentioned, 2017, 36 years later, he's released Unleash the Love. And it does make the independent charts, coming at number 37. However, on disc 2 of this, he re-records a lot of the classic Beach Boys songs and absolutely butchers them, mate. I'm not going to put you or our followers through any more cringeworthy moments, but it comes down to the conversation for me of the most cringe-worthy Mike Love moments, and there's quite a few, mate. John Stamos decides to join the party for a bit, and in 2022, they do a live version of Do It Again, and 3 minutes of intro before he even actually starts singing, and then he dances like Donald Trump Like, it's just awful. I mean, you've got all the lawsuits that are going on and all this kind of stuff, and then I'm going to toggle around the timeline here, but the song Brian's Back, mate. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, look, it's interesting. I mean, they're suing the heck out of one another. They're not talking to one another, and he's putting Brian's Back, which is a song from the late 70s, so it's one of those re-recorded efforts, and it's going on about how he loves Brian Wilson and he's a genius and all these types of things. So it's almost like he's trying to tie himself very closely to Brian Wilson and his genius, and I think he does it, I think, in a too obvious manner, to be quite honest. I mean, they're not talking to one another, and it's not as if it's the most memorable song, mate, but like, bloody hell, 80 minutes is a double album. It's no White Album. Let's put it that way.
No.
And why do people have to re-record the hits? What are they actually getting out of this, that they didn't get out of it when they recorded songs, originally? So, I mean, there has to be a real reason to do that.
Well, it's cash. It's cash. I mean, there's lots of YouTube videos out there basically just saying he was doing it for the money. I mean, 100% agreement. I mean, this guy's an absolute flog. Like, really. I mean, there's people out there who genuinely think he's a brilliant artist.
I reckon that he's probably got something to say around that he does write lyrics. I mean, they're not really... I don't think he's a genius at writing lyrics. In fact, I just think that some of the lyrics are quite basic, if you're actually asking me. But maybe he has a point there. You'd say that he does have he's probably the hardest working member and probably the one that has his head screwed on. Like, he's not he wasn't going into to drugs quite so much, so probably wasn't quite as affected by as what the others might have been. But you know what? Like, it feels as if he's been blessed with being related to people who are quite musically gifted. He can kind of sing, but I feel as if if he wasn't doing this, mate, he'd be probably a very good insurance salesman. I just don't know. I just can't see Mike Love building out a career without the Beach Boys, and I think that is really where it's summed up for me.
Oh, mate, you've hit the nail on the head. I don't know what else to say, really. I mean, who else wears a hat with their own fucking name on it, really? I mean, Jesus Christ.
All right, look, so that's I think that was an interesting topic. There's lots more to discuss, and we probably didn't have quite the time just to really go through quite as much as we'd like to, but it is a fascinating topic, his efforts to become a solo artist, and especially when you consider all of the conflicts that existed within the band around the musical direction. So please let us know in the comments if you've got any thoughts or things to say about how this is all played out for Mike Love as a solo artist.